you did something pretty epic, which was you ran for a presidential role for one of the most significant and biggest student Islamic organizations in the UK and Ireland, right? FOSIS.
Yeah, that's the one.
So you were the first woman president since, I think you said 54?
Well, yeah, they've never
In 54
had,
years?
They've never had
one.
Yeah.
I want to ask you the lessons that you learned, because with leadership, with being first, being Muslim, all these things tie in together, right? So what were, if you can think of maybe the top few, biggest lessons that you learned from doing this, from, being elected, going for the role, and especially from a spiritual point of view? How does that tie into what you did and how that affected your decisions and how you actually went ahead and carried out that role?
So I think the best way to look at this is to kind of look at it from the spiritual journey, the leadership journey, and the women in leadership journey. And I think that one of the aspects that you really learn is that leadership is a very lonely place, especially when you're at the top per se. And when there aren't very many other women who are also in these positions, I would find myself in meetings where I would be the only female in the room, representing, the Muslim student movement, or I find myself in committee meetings where, I'm massively outnumbered. I'm quite small as well. So I'm like, okay, I've got to be assertive. I've got to, So I often find myself thinking, okay, there's a pressure on me to deliver, and also a bit of a microscope because I am a woman and no one's done this before. I remember someone on my committee who I won't name is like, this is the first time I've ever had a female boss. And I'm like, okay, good.
Good, yeah.
Good, get used to it. So there was loads of I think for
did
a lot.
Did that give you confidence, or did that make you think, like, you know what, the purpose that you spoke of earlier, did that motivate you to be like, okay, this is good, I need more people that think like this? Or was that just a kind of a comment that you just brushed off a little bit?
I think I probably brushed it off and thought, okay, you need to get real, okay? No, I think for me that what was really inspiring was when other girls would come up to me as I toured the country all the way to Cornwall, actually, and they would just come up to me and say, wow, this is the first time I've ever seen a Muslim woman in a role like yours. You're literally the president, you're not just head of the department. And, that's so inspiring. And people were like, yeah, now I'm going to run for this position, or I'm going to... Wow. So for some people, it was just a mindset that they were able to change just because visually seeing me in that position. But I think in terms of those challenges, so one of the biggest lessons I learned is that ultimately you have to have trust and faith in Allah. Because when you're on those very long train journeys and plane journeys, or when you miss your train, you realize that, though you may be surrounded by people, ultimately the only thing that's going to keep you going is knowing that you're doing this for the right reason, but also knowing that, Allah is accepting it from you, that, there's some benefit and goodness that's coming out of it.
Yeah.
And so often I find myself, exhausted, tired at the end of it, and then I'd ask myself, why am I doing this, Or people would ask me, like, why are you doing this? And I'm like, oh, because, I believe in what I'm doing. I believe that this work is important. And I'm doing it for the sake of Allah, ultimately, if this is what's going to help me in this life and the hereafter, but also to benefit all those around me. So I think the intention is so important, as is the mission. But also you need to have very good company and very good people that can advise and that you can trust. And I always talk about the normal friend. Okay. We have these in our life,
We spoke about that back on episode 19.
So you've got to have a friend that literally does not care about what you're doing in your life and that they are not involved and the drama's not so deep.
Yeah.
They're just like, okay, that's great. And they'll just give you a very matter-of-fact opinion. And you'll just be like, okay, you're so right. Or, sometimes you need your mum just to remind you. You might be the president of the whatever, but you're going to clean your room. So humility is also a very important concept. Yeah. And then finally, I would say that, when you're in a public-facing role, you need to remember that people are paying attention. People are looking at you. And often things like privacy or even spirituality can be very challenging because outwardly you're very Islamic, you're doing this great work. But inwardly, are you keeping up with that additional worship, that additional ibadah, your Quran routine? Are you making sure you give sadaqah? Are you making sure you're doing deeds that people can't see? And, I used to get loads of advice and, just making sure that if people are upset with you, like, apologize, move on. If people are praising you too much, make tawbah, remember your sins,
Yeah.
And when you feel that this is about me, like, I'm the only one that's going to make this change, I'm the only one that can do this, you remember that when you put your head on the prayer mat, that, Allah is the Almighty and that you're just one speck,
That's
and
deep.
remembering your place in this world. And I think that was one of my biggest lessons as president, which is I'm just laying one more brick to the house. I'm not going to change it all, that my desire is always there. But at the end of the day, other people need to come, other people need to do these journeys, and it's part of the nature of being an ummah or being part of society. And also that, does the work end here? No, it doesn't. We have to remember that this is just a segment. We're moving on to another segment, but that doesn't mean we stop. We don't just go into our careers or whatever.
Yeah.
We stop. So that kind of desire to change is still beating within me, and the need to kind of continue to giving back is still in me. But I've learned so many lessons about taking care of myself, taking care of spirituality, and remembering to really cherish those around you. When I was traveling so much, I didn't get to see my family a lot. I didn't get to see my friends a lot. I didn't get to just do social things, although, So it's important to really cherish those moments because, life changes and your circumstances change. But those people that you really love, they should always have that time and priority in your life.
Fantastic. I love how you mentioned normal friends that keep you grounded, that tell you how it is. It's everything you mentioned is on point. But now I want to talk about, again, let's go back to the being a woman in this position.